Thank you, everyone, for joining us for tonight's webinar. It's a great topic, and we're very lucky to have Maggie join us to talk about relationships. Just a couple of quick things before we jump in. The webinar is being hosted by Ventura Fire Foundation, and if you're not familiar with us, Ventura Fire Foundation in Ventura, California, exists to support firefighters. We're not like other fire foundations that raise money to buy equipment or raise money to help folks impacted by fires, although those are both noble endeavors. We exist for firefighters and for supporting them. And increasingly, as we grow, we're focusing our attention on mental health and on firefighter families, which is one of the reasons why we're doing this webinar series. Our other big program that I encourage you to check out, if you haven't already, is our podcast, Firehouse Roundtable, which I think one of our hosts is on the webinar, Jason. Firehouse Roundtable explores a lot of these same issues that are important to firefighters and their families. In fact, Maggie, our presenter tonight, has been on twice already, once with her husband and once just a couple weeks ago talking about some of these same issues she'll go over tonight. And so this webinar is part of a series that we're doing in 2024. The first one was on PTSD, then we did one on extended deployments, this one on relationships, and the next one in November is on parenting and fire families. So those that have already occurred, I encourage you to go to our website and take a look at those, and to register for the one in November, which I think will also be another very good one. Tiffany Atala will be presenting at that one. And the whole series is made possible by Vanguard Charitable, which we appreciate their support. A couple of housekeeping things. Keep yourself on mute while the discussion is happening, but if you want to raise a topic or ask a question, feel free to mute yourself and then remute yourself. The other thing is we are recording this so people can watch offline, but if the conversation is such that you'd rather we stop recording, that is perfectly fine. We'd rather have a good open discussion than, record everybody. So don't let that stop you. Just say, hey, stop the recording. We'll stop the recording and then we can move from there. And so with that, I am going to admit some more people here. Okay. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Amanda Ellis. Amanda is one of the newest board members for the foundation and a firewife. She has a background in education, which she is putting to good use, homeschooling their two kids, which I cannot imagine doing. We should do a whole webinar series on that someday. Amanda and her husband, John, who's an engineer at Ventura City, they host their own podcast, Everyday Ellis's, which they explore a bunch of topics. I encourage you to check that out. Again, that's Everyday Ellis's. And with that, I'm going to be quiet and turn it over to Amanda.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining and letting me be a part of this. I'm so excited to hear from Maggie. I just re-listened to one of her podcasts on the Firehouse Roundtable, so took some more notes. I'm ready. Like Joe mentioned, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself, but also if you want something more privately answered, feel free to pop in the discussion chat and we can answer your question at the end. So you have options if you want, like Maggie said, this to be kind of like more of a discussion and open conversation than just her talking at us. So please feel free to know that we really want to make this open for everyone to feel able to participate. So as one of the newest members on the foundation, I'm really excited to support the community and bring more people in and just support the effort like Maggie's talking about with healthy relationships. How can we support us, spouses at home, the kids, just different things we can do. So this is really exciting for me to be a part of. We have two little ones. I've been a firewife for 9 years, so very excited for this topic. Let me introduce Maggie. I have my notes here, so pardon me. Maggie Hernandez, clinical focus is counseling first responders, military members, and veterans, those coping with addiction, and survivors of mass casualty incidents. Maggie enjoys working with individuals and couples struggling with infidelity, traumatic events, family issues, and gender, sexuality, identity issues, or beliefs that leave them feeling powerless. Super cool, which I really appreciate. Maggie is also a Navy daughter, so she understands kind of like the different life growing up as a child herself. And now she is married to a firefighter paramedic. So I really appreciate she gets it from all perspectives. She's a mom of 2 young children, and she has lived experience with the unique challenges experienced by first responders, military members, and their families. Another cool thing, she's EMDR trained, which I know she'll talk about more, and incorporates attachment and somatic work in the healing process to help her clients get back in touch with the truths their bodies hold. So thanks for joining, and I'm excited. Take it away, Maggie.
All right. Hi, everybody. Happy Tuesday. It's the night before school starts for Ventura. So we made it, y'all. Through all 8 weeks of summer, we made it. So as Amanda said, I am a fire wife and a Navy daughter. I have some lived experience with the first responder and military community. My husband is an active duty firefighter paramedic for the city of Pasadena. He's been there for 10 years. We've been together for just about all of those 10 years. I've got an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old. So I understand how challenging it can be to mom and also be a fire wife as well. This is actually a second career for me. I have 18 years of experience in like tech marketing and business development, and decided when we were running our nonprofit that also benefits first responders, that it was time for me to go back to graduate school and time to do something that would allow me to make a more meaningful contribution to the first responder community. So went back to school in 2000, graduated in 2020, graduated in 2023. And I've been doing clinical work for a couple of years now. I'm a registered associate. I have a private practice here in Ventura where I work under Dr. Pilar Sumalpom. So yeah, it's a little bit about me. But let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna open up start presenting my slide deck, but feel free to pop any questions into the chat. If you want to unmute and just say, hey, I've got a quick question, please feel free. I definitely want this to feel conversational. I don't love talking at people. I'm not much of a presenter. So yeah, we can just kind of keep this casual. So let me share my screen. Open up Canva here. All right. And let's see if this will cooperate. Present. Here we go. Okay. So we're here to talk about firefighters and their partners and how to maintain a healthy relationship in the fire service. Shameless photo. This is my husband and me. I really love this picture. So I like to say with a lot of my clients, we are kind of first responding to your relationship when I have couples and folks who come in. This is a very unique community and y'all have some unique needs. So it's the standard marriage and family therapy approach does not always apply. Date nights when you come home every Wednesday night is not always an option. You're not always coming home on a Wednesday. So having someone who really gets it and understands some of the unique ins and outs of this field is pretty important. So the first thing I usually begin with all of my couples is going to be communication. We touched on this a bit when I was on with Jason and Steph a few weeks ago. And Steph mentioned that she loves holding space for Jason. I love holding space for my husband as well. I think it's my responsibility to really make sure that I'm in a good headspace though, before I can do that, especially with this community. We need to make sure that we're in a good spot to be able to hear some of the heavy things that they might be coming home with. But by doing this and making sure that I'm in a good place mentally, I'm really modeling for him how I want him to show up for me. So one of the biggest things is to be understanding and to be flexible. Recognizing that their job can be demanding and really emotionally draining, that sometimes they might need space to decompress. They might not always be able to talk about their day. They might not really want to talk about their day. And when they're on shift, you know, since their schedule can change unexpectedly, being adaptable and understanding that plans can change. So it'll help kind of ease the stress for my couples. Something I like to encourage folks to do is really to create rituals. Practice date nights as much as you can when that's not necessarily feasible. I know we're in fire season and strike teams are all over the place. So being able to maybe come up with a time where you can have a daily phone call. Sorry, let me admit some folks. Here we go. Where you can have a daily phone call. Maybe if you can do like a quick FaceTime before bed, that kind of a thing, whatever the schedule will allow. Just trying to kind of have some consistency because it'll help bridge the gap a little bit since they have such an irregular schedule. Being able to practice open communication is so crucial. Being able to share your feelings and your concerns honestly, excuse me, but also being mindful of their stress levels. I get into some of the who, what, when, where, how stuff later. Being mindful of that, being mindful about like what's actually going on for them today, like asking, you know, being able to ask, you know, what exactly do you need from me right now? How can I communicate with you in a way that's going to be impactful for you? And being able to practice some empathy as well. Being able to set boundaries. It's totally okay to set boundaries around work talk. My husband and I do it all the time because sometimes this can get overwhelming hearing about their stories, or they can become overwhelmed hearing about our stories when we're at home with the kids and family stuff and all the drama. Excuse me. So having maybe some agreed upon times where you can take some time to sit down with each other, or some topics maybe that are a little more sensitive that you can kind of say, hey, this is something I want to talk about. Are you in an okay space to be able to discuss this? And then having some outside support systems. Having outside support systems is non-negotiable in this community. And that goes for both parties. I think I mentioned in the podcast with Jason and Steph not too long ago that my brother-in-law is a captain with LA City, and that if my husband can't talk to me about something, he can talk to his brother, and they can chat while they're driving home from work together, or they can get together and go fishing after they come off shift together and be able to discuss some of the stuff that, you know, maybe he doesn't want to tell me because it can be pretty dark. And while I do hear a lot of dark stories, sometimes he doesn't want to be the one to share those things with me. And then celebrating the wins, no matter how big or small, recognizing and celebrating the little victories in your relationship, and maintaining some, like, I like to say, like, have some small gestures of appreciation or acknowledgement that you can do. We'll get into it a little bit later in terms of, like, I call it the bank of goodwill, being able to kind of put those deposits into saying like, hey, thanks for showing up for me today. I really appreciate it when you listened and when you said it would be okay for me to share something with you. It's a pretty big deal. Being able to make those acknowledgments is really important. Let's see. I don't know if I wanted to jump ahead just yet. Here we go. Yes, I did. Reentry rituals. These are things where we talked about it briefly with Jason and Steph. There was I like to encourage my firefighters and their significant others, depending on who I'm working with, to have some rituals that you can establish with your partner when you're coming off shift. This can be for my first responders. It can be take a shower when your relief comes in so that you don't have to worry about jumping out with soap all over you if they pop a call. If that's not an option, if you have a longer drive home and you really just don't want to be there anymore, to invest in like a great nail brush. And it sounds really silly, but just go and wash your hands and feel like some hand scrub and scrub that place off and really visualize yourself washing that place off so that you're not carrying it home with you. It allows you to really kind of leave that work self at work and be able to carry your home self home with you. If that means sometimes calling your partner and saying, hey, I'm going to take the long way home today, or I'm going to stop and get a cup of coffee first. just kind of clearing that with your person and letting them know, this is what I'm thinking about doing. It was, I might have gotten really beat up last night. So I really just want to take a few minutes to myself before I get here. Or my husband does this, he'll call and say, I'm going to sit in the driveway for about 5 minutes. Just want you to know I'm going to be in the driveway. Please don't let the dog out. Please don't let the kids out. I just need to be for a minute. And that's totally fine. That is one of his reentry things. And I'm happy to accommodate that. Sorry, I'm going to put someone in. There we go. So something I like to do is my husband and I will make each other a cup of coffee. When he's going on shift, he'll make a cup of coffee for me and leave it for me. That way it's ready to go. When he's gone, and I wake up in the morning after him. And then when he comes home, if sometimes it's, 2 shifts passing in the night, I'm going to be going to work or I'm going to be taking the kids to school and I won't be there. So I leave a cup of coffee for him. It's something really small, but it means a lot. It just shows that we're thinking about each other. So that's some of our way to kind of reconnect and show that we support each other. Creating that time of transition. Again, it can mean some quiet time. It can mean maybe you take a walk together and just don't talk for a little while if that's what they need, if that's what you need. Let's be real, if you're kind of touched out, if you've got a couple of kids who have been home with you and you're just ready to have some peace and quiet, maybe that's something that you can do. Just something where it'll help you kind of decompress before you dive back into the family activities and the discussions. I love to encourage my couples to set aside time for family meals as much as possible. I know we've got school schedules coming up and extracurricular activities, sports, soccer is going to start up pretty soon here, and that complicates things. But being able to plan at least one time a week where you can have that like special dedicated meal time together when they're home. It really allows everyone to reconnect. It can be a very comforting ritual. My kids love when their dad is home for family dinner. It's something that I think can be really powerful for families to really just reconnect over food. And then being able to set aside some time to talk about their shift if they're up for it, or simply share how your day went. They might prefer to unwind quietly with a hobby. My husband loves to go fishing. So if he comes home and says, I'm going to grab my pole and I'm out, that must have been a really rough night. You go for it. Do whatever you got to do, and I'll see you when you get home. And then some relaxation rituals, allowing them to really engage with that hobby if that's something that they have. I love for my first responders to have a hobby because you're so used to being go, 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 go all the time when you're on shift. So when you come home, sometimes these guys are looking around and twiddling their thumbs and they're saying, what the heck do I do? Which can lead to some pretty maladaptive behaviors. They're guys who are just drinking because they're bored, or going to the bar because they're bored and getting into, some not great coping behaviors just because they're bored. So being able to allow them time to find a hobby, being able to allow them to engage with it is really important, while also maintaining one for yourself as the partner. It's a big deal. And then quality time. Again, it can be like a weekly movie night, again, as much as schedules permit. I know it's not consistent where they're going to have every Friday night off. But being able to like maybe share a hobby, share an activity together, something that's consistent and enjoyable to really help strengthen the bond. Someone else say, there you go. But yeah, those are really, really important. Again, some other reentry rituals can be self-care. Doing the hobbies and things like that. Encouraging self-care routines for our partners who are first responders is really important. Can be, for me and a lot of my clients, movement is medicine. So going for runs, going for a swim, paddleboarding, surfing, we're right by the beach, so it makes sense for all of these things to be kind of water sports. But yeah, meditating, whatever works for you. Going to a jujitsu class, what have you. It doesn't really matter, but finding something where you can practice that self-care where it's just something for you. Excuse me. And then being able to celebrate those achievements, recognizing and celebrating the end of a challenging set, or, maybe the end of a month where things were particularly hectic. Being able to sit back and reflect a little bit together and say, wow, we survived that. Yeah. It's a good feeling to be able to celebrate that stuff. All right. I did say this on the podcast, and I think Jason took issue with it until I explained it. But relationships are work. And I encourage my couples to really dedicate the same level of care and attention and effort to their relationship as they do to their career. It is not easy to become a firefighter. It is not easy to become a police officer, a nurse, and any first responder, career. It is difficult to get into that field. It takes a lot of effort. The relationships are the same way. This is not a set it and forget it kind of thing. I hope I'm not dating myself by making that reference. But they require ongoing effort, communication, understanding from both partners. It's about actively engaging in the relationship and addressing issues as they come up and continually nurturing that connection. And that, to me, that level of attention, it's work. It's going to be enjoyable work, but it's also work. I mean, it's just in terms of like the dedication level that it requires. Even in the best relationships, there are going to be challenges. There's going to be moments of difficulty. So I typically use the Gottman method when it comes with couples work. And I work with couples to balance their emotional bank account and to use that turning toward practice. So turning toward means that maybe you're going to recognize your partner has like this frustrated sigh. So that sigh, while it can be activating, it'll be something that you'll want to react to. I try to encourage my folks to respond, pause, and respond accordingly. Notice that sigh is a bid for connection. So you can respond in a way that turns a potentially negative moment into a chance to strengthen that bond. You can offer to help. You can simply be a supportive listener. But these moments of understanding where you're turning towards your person and saying, hey, I heard that. What is it that you need right now? It's like putting a little deposit into this emotional bank account, showing up for our person. And over time, these consistent positive interactions build a reservoir of goodwill that every relationship is going to need that reservoir, especially first responders. I think this community, since the schedule is so unpredictable, let's say you've got something planned for an anniversary or a birthday and they get mandatory, or there's a strike team that goes out. Yes, it is distressing. But when you already have such a nice balance in that bank account, it's okay to say like, okay, this is really frustrating, but you know what? He's here for all of the other things. He tries to be here for as much as he can for all of the other things. So having that bank account, you can then kind of take a little withdrawal on that when you need to. It's about creating a culture of empathy and mutual support in the relationship. So, excuse me, the 3H concept, I actually have a dear friend who is an MD and firewife, and she shared this with me the other day, that the person who created this reel on Instagram actually called it a 4H, because do you need help? Do you need to be held? Or do you need to be heard? And then her partner said, or do you need to be humped? And really, in this community, does that not make sense? I mean, that really resonated. I was like, God, that's exactly what my husband would say every single time. But so the 3H's is being able to ask your partner, what is it that you need right now? Like I heard that like, that groan that you had over there. Do you need to be heard? Do you want me to help you? Like, what are you looking for? And then on the other end, being able to recognize what it is we need in the moment. Do we need to be held? Do we need to just be heard? Do we want to be helped right now? Here we go. Sorry, there's something coming in on the chat. Let me take a quick look. 100% the fourth. It's totally true. So I'm glad I'm not the only one whose husband would say that. Okay. So, I think I had this out of order, but that's okay. We can get into codependency. Here we go. With this community, codependency is not uncommon. And I say this, it's kind of understandable. The partner is used to kind of being home and being the fixer. and volunteering to take care of the stuff that they can't take care of. Maybe keeping quiet to avoid an argument if their partner is feeling really activated. Feeling like you can't tell them no, and really kind of like sacrificing your own stuff so that you can take care of things for them. On the other side, it can be kind of feeling rejected or left out when your partner does things without you for the first responder. So, pardon me. The antidotes to that are to be aware of it, notice that it's happening, kind of like AA, first step is to acknowledge that there's a problem. It's the same with this, just acknowledging that there's a problem, acknowledging that this isn't working. Practicing assertive communication rather than being unable to say no. I like to tell all of my folks, no is a complete sentence. No, thank you if you want to be really nice. It's totally okay to just say no. In this community, especially building your own identity for my partners is so crucial. I think that's, again, it's another non-negotiable for me. You have to have your own identity in this community. And then working on some attachment work, finding out what your attachment style is. That's something I do with all of my clients. Actually, it's not even most, it's all of my clients. Being able to find out what their attachment style is. Are you kind of an anxious attacher? Are you an avoidant attacher? Excuse me. What I see more often than not is that my first responder is an avoidant attacher and my partner is the anxious attacher. Super common, and it's fine. Our attachment styles are changeable. It's something that we can shift. And it's something that when it's really beautiful to see two people who are trying to shift towards that secure attachment, it works so well for an avoidant and anxious attacher to work together to strive towards that secure attachment style with each other. And here we go. For my partners, you're not alone. These are some of the folks in my community, some of my family, my fire family, who we do damn near everything with. These are the women who, when our husbands are on shift, we will call each other up and say, bring the kids over. We're going to have dinner over here. Have no idea what we're having, but we're going to figure it out. I don't care if we're going to order pizza or we're going to raid the fridge and have leftovers, whatever. We're going to figure this out. These are the people who, when my husband gets force hired and I have a long day with clients, I can call one of them and say, could one of you please pick my kids up from school? These are the people, and I do the same for them. These are the people who they are my tribe. They are my family. So wanted to share them. So I like to ask people a lot, what is your why? What are your values? Take some time to get really clear on your own values and to communicate them with your partner. This is as the fire spouse or partner, significant other. It's important to know what is your why in this community. Why are you with this person? Why are you part of this really challenging community? It's not easy to be the partner of a firefighter. There's a lot of unknown. We really have to trust a lot of the time that they know what they're doing, that their captain knows what they're doing, that their engineer knows what they're doing, that their partner knows what they're doing. And, it can be scary. So being able to understand what is your why are you part of this? Why are you with this person? And getting really clear again on those values, like the things that are really important to you, the most important things to you, and being able to have those conversations with your partner. Those are the things that are going to keep you guys in alignment. If you know for sure that you're operating in alignment with all of your values, it's going to bring you guys closer together. It's going to minimize distress for you individually and as a couple. So
Maggie, can I say something?
Yeah.
I was just going to add on that how important the fire family has been for our family, both in Sacramento and here in Ventura, and through those hard times, both probation and academy and John being hospitalized and just regular life, a play date, a dinner date, like you said, not doing things alone because your spouse is on shift and the kids, have this other set of people they feel really comfortable and safe with and look forward to being around. And it's really special.
Yeah, it really is. I think I kind of underestimated it when I became a fire wife. And and kind of poo-pooed it to an extent. And as time has gone on, I have really leaned into my fire wives, and I've definitely found my folks at PFD, and we are just like fast friends. And we just went up to Sacramento to visit some who just moved up there not too long ago. But being able to have those connections, it's really, really, it's priceless. Having people who like understand the lifestyle, who know, you know, like, oh God, that sucks. They're gonna be working on Christmas this year. Well, why don't we hang out? You know, things like that. And then the second point, that not everyone's gonna understand your lifestyle or your choices. That's okay. I've lost track of how many times I've had to explain to family members, the same family members, well, no, it doesn't work that way. Sometimes they work on birthdays and sometimes they work on holidays, and they're not home for every weekend. And it's kind of a different thing. That's all right. There are going to be the people who do get it. Really lean into that. I'm not saying by any means forget about the people who don't get it, but you know, there's going to be times it's maybe not easy to understand. It's kind of tough to really truly understand this life unless you live it. Knowing that your role as a partner and the support that you provide is vital. They can't do this without us. We really do. I mean, support staff, I like to joke that I'm support staff all the time. And my husband will tell me, like, I can't do this without you. What are you talking about? Support staff. He was like, this is a 51-49 partnership. You run this place. And I'm like, ooh, I like the sound of that. This is my station, apparently. So that's kind of how we look at it around here. And then finding your tribe, being able to really cultivate that. I know it's intimidating. I have a couple of guys who are newer firefighters, have been on for like 2, maybe 3 years, and their wives are really intimidated. That's okay. Because you know what? You can find some on Instagram. You can find some like the Dear Chiefs. All of those women have been really kind. All of the women from Wives on Fire are amazing. There are some really great podcasts and really great Instagram accounts out there where if that's your thing and that's where you want to start to kind of like dip a toe, go for it. Either way, just being able to find your tribe and really kind of lean into them. Let's see. And that is it for my slides. But here's me, like a nice big photo of me. This is how you can get in touch with me. My email is down there at the bottom. And then my phone number is there as well. I'm on Instagram at Mind Matters with Maggie. So feel free to join into a conversation there. You can always reach out. But yeah, that's it. I will stop sharing now. There we go.
Hey, Maggie, this is Joe.
Yeah.
So on the podcast, you talked about something that I thought was really, I mean, I'm not a first responder, neither is my spouse, but I want to use it in our household, even though we're not first responders, is that the idea of consent and the reentry when you come home or when your spouse comes home, before you unload on them, make sure they're in a place where they can be present for that. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Absolutely. I will scream it from the rooftops that consent is the hottest thing ever in a relationship, in all arenas, but especially when it comes to communication. Being able to ask your partner, hey, I got my ass handed to me last night and I really got to be able to talk about something that is kind of sticking with me. Or, you know, I'll tell my husband, like, God, I just got handed a really crazy story that I just want to be able to tell you some stuff without giving you any identifying details, but I just got to tell you something that this came up today and it's doing a number on me emotionally, but are you okay to hear this right now? Like, let me know if you're in a good spot. I love being asked that if it's okay, like, hey, is it okay for me to share this with you? I love that because it forces me to check in with my own self and say, like, God, I don't know, let's do a quick body scan. How am I feeling right now? Am I feeling okay? And if I'm feeling capable of being able to handle some of the darker stuff that he's going to bring home, because if he's going to tell me, it's the darkest of the dark. So if I have to take a few minutes to myself, then great. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a few minutes to myself. I'm going to go outside. I'm going to pick up my chicken. I have an emotional support chicken. And informal, of course, but I'm going to pick her up and walk around the backyard. or I'm going to go out and water the garden, or I'm going to jump on the Peloton really quick and take a quick ride so that I can get my mind right, so that I know I can be fully present and an active listener, so that I can be able to help my partner as much as possible. And he does the same for me. So yeah, consent's hot.
I think on that, one of the things that John has gotten really good at, because in Sacramento, he had about a 30-minute commute home. So he had a little bit more time to decompress and process. And here his commute, like the most is like 10 minutes. So oftentimes he'll say he'll go to the beach, or sometimes he needs to get like breakfast by himself, or, stop for coffee before he comes home to process, decompress before that reentry. And that's something he's gotten really good at. One of the things that I know I personally struggle with, from like you said, is like, if I feel like he shared something with me, we're like fine to share, but then I feel like I can't fix it. I can't offer anything to help. And sometimes I just struggle. Like, I know he just wanted me to hold space. But I just feel like that wasn't enough. I can't take it away. I can't let him unsee it, and all of that side of it. So from like the spouse perspective, that's something I hold on to.
Yeah. And it's hard. I mean, I suffer from the same thing, I think, but I mean, maybe it's because I practice it more because I'm doing it all day at work too. I've gotten better at just saying, wow, that must really suck. That really has to suck. Like, to know that you show up to this call for service and you really can't do anything.
Yeah.
One that my husband really had a hard time with was a call where two people who were able to make it out of the car were screaming that there were people left in the car, and my husband had to try to jump in, but the car was balanced in such a way that they couldn't really get in to save the people, and the car caught on fire. It was a whole thing. It was probably a few years ago, and he was laying on the floor of the living room just crying, and he said, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't get them out. And I just sat with him and I said, I want to fix this for you. I wish I could take it away. I wish I
Yeah.
could, and I wish I could make you feel better. And he said, you're helping right now. You're making this feel better right now just by being here. And that really kind of clued me in. This was before I got into this field. It really clued me into like, oh, okay, so I can just sit with you and just like witness this for you, and that can be enough. And for my partners, I try to really drive that point home. It's enough to just be there, to just be present, to just be with them, and to really be with them. I know I mentioned on the podcast that I'm a sympathetic crier. I really don't let anyone cry by themselves if they're in my presence. I'll tear up a little bit, and I tell my people, it's okay. It's not my therapy. I'm fine. Just, I'm showing you that I'm with you right now. Like, I'm 100% with you right now. What you're saying right now hurts you, and oh God, I'm hurting right alongside you, and I wish I could take this away for you. And it's not possible, but how do we figure out how to still navigate this together? Oh, hey.
Hey, do you remember I asked you, or Steph maybe asked you almost the exact same thing on the podcast, and my response was, it's the most important to know that you wanted to do it to fix it. Just the fact that you're there and you wish you could fix it, like the world.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents again.
No, it's true. It's totally true. It's, being able to just like witness someone's, whatever they're going through. I mean, I tell my husband all the time, like, I know you like to say that you have the best job in the world. Respectfully, I get to sit with people on their darkest days and deal with some of their darkest stuff. And they tell me stories that they don't tell anybody else. And it's such a privilege to be able to hold that for them and being able to like be that container for them. Yeah, I love getting to do this work. It's a privilege to get to go in every day and hold that space for people. And it's the same when I'm hearing, when my partner is the person who has to tell me the story. It's just as much of a privilege then. Sorry, I saw something on here. Mary, chickens, garden, and Peloton. Maybe. So what are some ways you can create a safe space at home for emotions in this line of work? Oof. So most often in this profession, it takes a lot to get first responders to open up, at least from my experience. Yes. Yes, it absolutely does. Usually by the time they land in my lap, they have been in crisis and they're like, that's it. I need to talk to a therapist, or their partner has told them you need to go to a therapist, or we need to go to a therapist. It can be really challenging. Being able to demonstrate like consistently, hey, I want to show up for you. Hey, I want to be here for you. Being able to really kind of like just demonstrate the capability of being able to be there, I think is one of the biggest things they need to build that trust. You know, trust is a huge thing in the first responder community, especially with my firemen. They need to be able to know that like you can hold what they have to give you. And there are going to be times where my husband has told me stories where, wow, it was a lot. And I told him afterwards, like, I'm going to need to sit with that for a little while. And I mean, there are times where I've had to go to my therapist. My husband told me this one thing and it stayed with me and it's really messing me up. That's okay. It's totally okay. We're not expected to be superheroes. They're not expected to be superheroes. But yeah, being able to really kind of create that space where, excuse me, you can let them know, hey, I can handle whatever it is you have to put out right now. Probably wouldn't be one of the best ways to help create that space. And being active in your listening too, and saying like, okay, I'm hearing this is so it sounds like that was really scary. Like it sounds like that was really upsetting. Being able to really hear what they're saying and being able to comment on it a little bit, if that's okay for your partner. There have been times where, like with the car thing that my husband responded to, I said, God, that must have been really, really frustrating. It must have been really hard to not be able to get to those people. I'm really sorry that that happened. That was enough for him just to show that I was fully present. So yeah, it's tricky though.
I just to also kind of go off of this comment from Mary, for my first responder, my firefighter, I found that having a culturally competent therapist is like number one. If they don't have experience with first responders, then he will not go and see them. And then, the other thing is he prefers couples therapy. So that has helped us a lot at times because it's like a safe space with me there. And then I can bring up things like, for example, like you said, like my husband had this really hard call and he was laying on the floor and it seems like it really stuck with him. So how can we talk about that in this safe space with a therapist? That's something that has helped us. Because yeah, it's hard.
It is, and I love that you brought up the culturally competent thing. There's been a debate in some of my friend group on Instagram where someone was saying it doesn't matter if they're culturally competent. I was like, really? Really? It doesn't matter? Because I don't know. Some of the things I hear, I have guys who are coming in and saying, yeah, I made my last therapist cry when I told them some of this stuff. It's like, yeah, you need someone who can hear these things and not flinch. So yeah, I love that you brought that up. I think it's vital. So yeah, that was it for me. Do you have any other questions?
I have one more question. You and I talked earlier about the 4 horsemen, and I didn't know if you would mind bringing that up here.
Yeah, not at all. So the Gottmans, John and Julie Gottman, have been studying couples since God was a boy, if I'm being real. They've both been around for a really long time. So they found that when relationships have these 4, they call them the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, when they have these 4 things consistently without any of the antidotes being practiced, that it will eventually spell for a couple's demise. So those things are, pardon me, see if I can remember off the top of my head right now. I haven't had to think about these in a minute. They're criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. Stonewalling means basically like leaving, slamming a door, ending a conversation, silent treatment, that kind of a thing. criticism, contempt, and defensiveness are exactly what they sound like. But these things all have antidotes. So for criticism, rather than, like you always, you never, basically saying that, having some gentle startup and being able to say, like, when this happens, I get really frustrated. Like when you leave your wet socks or your wet towel or your dirty socks or whatever around the house, I feel like I have to clean that up. And then I feel like a housekeeper and I don't love that feeling. Like I really want us to feel like partners. So can you help me out with that? Instead of saying like, you're so gross. You always leave your socks everywhere and you always leave a wet towel on the bed and then the sheets are wet. And I've never had experience with this, by the way.
I'm laughing over here because
Yeah, never had experience with that. Contempt is what it sounds like, really kind of like having low regard for your partner and like kind of looking down at them. So with that, it's building that culture of appreciation, being able to acknowledge the things that are good about your partner and being able to, say thank you for these things, being able to say like, wow, you, like with my husband, you made my coffee this morning. Thank you so much. I will tell him that every day. I will text him every single morning that he goes on shift. If he made my coffee for me, because he always does, I'll say, thank you so much for making my coffee. It's delicious. And it's small things. They're really, really small things. For defensiveness, the antidote is accountability, just taking responsibility and owning your stuff, only owning what's yours, not owning other people's things. But yeah, owning up to the stuff. If you screwed up, yeah, you know what? I screwed up. I apologize. And being able to mean that apology, not saying, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. That's not an apology. But yeah, being able to say like, you know what? I'm really sorry I made you feel that way. Apologies are free. I will tell all of my couples this. Apologies are free. Spread those things out everywhere. Just give them to whoever. If they need one, okay, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm really sorry I made you feel that way. I'm sorry I did something to make you feel that way. That's it. Right? Just someone feels seen, makes them feel better. When it comes to stonewalling, and I see this a lot, and this is the one that I will tend to kind of modify for my first responders. Stonewalling, the antidote to that is being able to take a time out and do whatever self-soothing activities you need, whether that is taking a walk or listening to music or, getting a heavy bag and punching the hell out of it, whatever it is for you, and then coming back together later. The Gottmans like to say within 24 hours. I recognize that sometimes that's not possible in this community. So I like to say, don't let it go for too long. Give it a couple of days if you need to, because I get it. If someone goes on shift and they've been fighting, I really don't love that, but sometimes it happens. Or you've been fighting when they're on shift. Don't love that either. I like to say, just press pause, pick it back up when they got home. It's going to be okay. The fight will still be there, I'm sure. Maybe it will have kind of died down a little bit, so it'll be easier for you to talk about it. But yeah, it's just being able to take a pause and then come back to it within 24 hours is the antidote to slamming the door and leaving, or silent treatment, hanging up. So yeah, I think criticism and contempt are the ones that I see most often, and I tend to see them together. And I really think that those are the two most dangerous ones. Defensiveness and stonewalling, yes, they're not great, but criticism and contempt are the ones that I'm really concerned about. Those are the ones I think are the most dangerous when they're together. But yeah. Anyone else have a question? Anybody? Okay.
those are all my questions. Does anybody else have any other questions? I don't see anything in the chat right now.
No.
If not, people can get in touch with you. Can we bring back up your slide one more time?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me.
Thank you so much, Maggie. Thank you to Vanguard for making this possible for the Ventura Fire Foundation.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. Let me do this. Hold on one second. Exit full screen. Thank you, Canva, for telling me it was a nice presentation. That's funny. All right, here we go. So this is my contact info. My email is mindmatterswithmaggie@gmail.com. My number is 805-669-7892. You can call or text that number either one. They're both totally fine. And then, like I said, I'm also on Instagram. It's Mind Matters with Maggie. It's my direct way to get a hold of me. So yeah, that is it.
Hey, Maggie.
Hey, what's up?
Hi, it's Steph.
Hi.
Hi. Hi. There's a couple things that I didn't want to interrupt because this webinar was so vital and so important. Couple things I've been hearing about is the different stages of kids, raising kids through different stages, and wondering if you've touched on that, or if that's something that you're interested in doing a webinar on, just navigating raising kids through the different stages, from toddler to elementary age to junior high to high school and then off to college, just processing and helping them, even understanding. I know, if I'm honest, I gave my kids a whole set of luggage on codependency, which was super fabulous.
I put the
And
codependency stuff in actually for you because we talked about that on the podcast. I was like,
right?
I'm putting that in today.
Yep. And I know there's others that are out there that may not have that, but may have other things. Have you thought, or just, I guess I'm just kind of putting a bug in your ear on, might be fun to do a
Totally.
webinar just when it has to do with raising kids, feeling alone, feeling overwhelmed, how to empower our kids
Yes.
to be part of the family and what that means.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I would love to. I would absolutely love to. Yeah, I think that's really, I'm also like being able to explain to your kids. I tell my kids all the time, you're not like other kids. You know, we've had, I know my daughter had a really hard time last year. I think Eric was on a strike team and was gone for several days, and Hazel was really struggling. Around day 4 is when she starts to kind of hit the wall on, okay, I'm just going to fall apart now. And that's okay. Like, we know that, we've predicted it. So I've been able to tell her teachers, like, hey, this is what kind of happens if he's on a strike team, and I let them know, or if he's, working a lot of overtime or what have you. And one of her friends at school, who's a civilian kid, said, well, why doesn't your dad just have another job? Like, he should just have another job, and he should just do something else. He should do what my daddy does. And my daughter said, no, my dad's a fireman. So she came home and told me that story. And she said, Mom, I was really upset with her when she told me your dad should just have another job. And I said, well, you're not like other kids. You and Hank are not like other kids, and that's okay. They're not going to always understand. I said, some of my friends don't always understand either. So I was telling her, this is why we have like Luke and Jade and the other Hank and all of these people who actually understand it, who live this life. Like, these kids get you. And it's okay to have that. But yeah, raising kids in this community, 100%. I would love to talk about that. I think that's really important.
To add on that, Hudson had that experience, but the opposite. He told John, why can't you just have a job where you come home every day?
We've had those conversations too. Yeah.
Yeah. And now that we're homeschooling, a similar thing, like trying to explain, like, we're different because we're a fire family. We're different because we're homeschooling, but those are our normal and our routine. And so, trying to make them not feel different, but letting them know we are different, but we have common groups of friends that are also different, like us.
Yeah, that's a big thing, because when you're a kid, think about it, like, the last thing you want to be is different. You want to be just like everybody else. Yeah, we've had those conversations too, though, about, why don't you have a job where you can come home every night? I wish you had a job where you could come home every day. And, I look at Eric when they say that, and I imagine he feels like an inch tall. He probably feels horrible. And then he has to explain, well, other people need help, and I'm going to go help them. Like, some people need some help and they don't know how to do it themselves. There's fires and they're not going to put themselves out, which my son gets all excited about that. And then they talk about big fire, big water, and all of that stuff. It's a whole thing. But yeah, being able to raise kids in this community, I would love to talk about that more. I think that would be a cool one, Steph. Thank you.
Yay, thank you. Even just those stories, just those different little ideas about how everybody's navigated it, really makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it definitely does.
All right. Well, thank you again, Maggie. It's really nice to have someone who has shared experience, being a Navy child and then married to a firefighter, and then having your experience as a marriage and family therapist. Now you bring so much value to our community, and we are so grateful for you taking your time to talk with us. I'm really enjoying getting to know you better, and I can't wait to hang out with you.
Soon.
And if anyone has any questions, again, reach out to Maggie directly. You could always reach out to us here at the Fire Foundation, connect with us. And we're just grateful for everyone who showed up and is listening to this recording later. Thank you for supporting us.
Yeah, thank you.